Angazitha, Honorable Mwango,
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson.
Advocate Arense, Advocate Mkize, Advocate Mohaitz. Good morning.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members, everyone present.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, honorable members and everyone present.
General Musikili. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members.
And those who accompany you.
Thank you, Chair. With me, it's from Legal Services, Major General Dr. Van Rooyen and Lieutenant Colonel Parsons from my office. It's only two.
Does Dr. Van Rooyen also wish to take the stand?
Chair, I will
Good
gladly
morning.
participate.
Good morning, General Dr.
Good morning.
Van Rooyen.
Good morning, Chair.
Thank you so much. Miss Delana Hakastali.
Morning, Chair.
Mr. Tejana is not here today. Good morning, Mr. Bonani Ramano. The staff of the political parties. Good morning to you. Members of the media, 1, 2, 3, 4. Good morning. 5. Good morning. How are you? And the other one there at the back in a pink shirt from Parliament Media, we also greet you. Chief Whip, I saw Honorable Mashilo. Honorable Mashilo is a member of the Mpumalanga Provincial Legislature. And I saw Honorable Malema, a member of the National Assembly. I saw them at the FNB on Saturday. And I wonder whether their presence there does not extend to the mandate of this committee. Public interference in the affairs of the PSL. We may have to invite them here to appear before this committee.
That's supported, Chair. Fully supported. That behavior cannot be
Honorable Matthys, we say that we saw Honorable Malema at FNB on Saturday. And we wanted to check whether his presence there does not extend to the mandate of this committee. Public interference in the affairs of the PSL.
We were sad about the Kaiser Chiefs loss, no? But no, it doesn't. Chair, it's organizational.
Okay,
Thank
no.
you, Chair.
We get the explanation. Honorable Raja, good morning. Honorable members, can I check if we have apologies? African National Congress.
Thank you so much, Chair. Honorable Sangoni will join us around 1 today.
Okay.
The Chief Whip will have to be recused at 2 for the business of the House. Thank you, Chair.
The MKP.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Nomvalo is on his way. He'll join us in the next few minutes. And Honorable Chonge will join us later. He's stuck on the traffic, Honorable Nomvalo.
Okay. Honorable Breitenbach.
Thanks, Chair. I'll go out at lunchtime and I may be back a little bit late, but not much.
Okay. Honorable Matthys.
Thank you, Chair. As I had said earlier, the absence of Honorable Malema has got nothing to do with the Derby. He's not still celebrating the win of the Pirates. It's organizational, so please note that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Chief Whip, our great grandchildren will live to see the Derby. It will come in generations. Honorable Vessels, do you have any apology?
Yes, Chairperson, if I can just be released at about 2:30, just on the order paper, there's two reports that I have to introduce in the plenary. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Bonani, do we have apologies for Honorable Sols and Honorable James? We don't have. Okay, thank you so much, honorable members. The apologies are accepted and recorded as such. Today is Monday, the 3rd of March. We have business with General Musikili, and we, in the second part, we are going to have a presentation from public submissions that were made with us. And then tomorrow, Wednesday, the 4th of March. Did I say today is Monday, the 3rd? It's Tuesday, the 3rd of March. Tomorrow on Wednesday, we are going to have Advocate Mashucha coming before us, the sole witness for tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we will have two witnesses. That is Mr. Paul O'Sullivan and Miss Sarah Jane Trent, who will be with us at the time we start at 10 o'clock in the morning until we conclude proceedings, whatever time we conclude. And I want to thank the members of this committee for the guidance that they have given us on how we should deal with the matter of Mr. Paul O'Sullivan. Your inputs have been very enriching and have assisted us to reach the kind of agreement that we have reached with him, and then he will return here. I want to thank our legal team, Advocate Arense and Mr. Tejana, for the sterling work that they continue to do for the committee. In some moments when we were coming against difficulties, they have always navigated us through those challenges. And that has not gone unnoticed, Advocate Arense. There were moments when there were uncertainties as to whether witnesses will appear before us. But you aptly used your negotiating skill to have those witnesses appearing before us, and for that we want to thank you so much. And we must again thank you for the role that you played, having to talk to Mr. Paul O'Sullivan and show him the importance why he should return to the ad hoc committee, have a full session with us, and we conclude our business in peace. Thank you so much for that. Your assistants, Advocate Mohaitz and Advocate Mkhize, we want to thank you for the support that you are giving before us. Honorable members, I've just got an apology from Honorable James that she may not be able to join us today due to illness. We hope that she will recover and join us for the rest of the days of the week. General Musikili, welcome. we have invited you here to have a session with us. And we are going to do the administration of oath. And from the experiences of the past week, can I say it upfront that we are going to request you to stay with us until we tell you that we have come to the end of the proceedings. Okay. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just requesting the witness to stay with us until the chair says, no, we have come to the end of the proceedings, and we want to thank you so much for that. Can I check, before we do the administration of oath, are there any remarks that you want to make, Advocate Arends, or any member of your team? Do you have any remarks that you want to make before we do the administration of oath? Honorable Skosana, your hand is noted.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members. Now, just to, in relation to tomorrow, we have two witnesses, Advocate Mashuga and Mr. Fadil Adams.
Go. Okay, that is noted. Can you confirm that the witness that is before us is indeed General MOSIKILI'S that you did consultations with?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, firstly, General MOSIKILI. Thank you for your attendance and thank you for accommodating our schedule. You were scheduled to testify last year, but I think your involvement in the G20 meant that we had to reschedule you. And that is why, Honorable Chair, honorable members, and General, there is a witness statement which had been prepared last year already and which you have in front of you. It is dated the 24th of November and is properly signed and commissioned by you. And subsequent to that, you've had some consultations with my colleague, Advocate Mokwetsi, and there is now a supplementary statement from you, but it supplements your original affidavit. And that supplementary statement you have now signed and commissioned this morning, and we've handed it to the chair. So, Honorable Chair, otherwise, if you please swear the witness in, and Advocate Mokwetsi will lead her evidence. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, let's go through the administration of oath, and before we start, we take the matter that Honorable Skosana wants to raise with us. General MOSIKILI'S, let me make the following remarks before we swear you in. That you have been invited to appear before this ad hoc committee, which is investigating allegations that were made by the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Commissioner, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, so that you can help the ad hoc committee in its oversight and investigative mandate. Amongst others, who are investigating the following. Number one, the alleged unlawful disbandment of the Provincial Killings Task Team, otherwise known as the PKTT or NPKTT, whichever you may be appropriate to call. Number two, the alleged moratorium on the filling of vacancies within the SAPS, the South African Police Services. Number three, alleged corrupt relationship between senior leadership within the SAPS and members of the public. And lastly, political interference in the work of the SAPS. In extending the invitation to you, the chairperson of the ad hoc committee has indicated that you may provide such information to the committee if you so wish under oath in terms of the powers, privileges, and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act of 2004. General Musikili, please be informed that by law you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all the questions lawfully put to you or to produce any document that you are required to produce in connection with the subject matter of the inquiry, notwithstanding the fact that the answer or the document could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or even damages. However, you are protected in that evidence given under oath or affirmation before a House or a committee of Parliament may not be used against you in any court or place outside Parliament, except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or documents required in these proceedings. General Musikili, please be aware that in terms of Section 17, subsection 2 of the Powers, Privileges, and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, a person who willfully furnishes a House or a Committee of Parliament with information or makes a statement before it which is false or misleading, commits an offense and is liable for a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years. You are required to take an oath or affirm that the evidence you are about to give before this committee is truthful. Which one do you elect? Do you elect to take oath or affirmation?
I'll take oath, Chair.
You have elected to take oath. May you please follow me as I dictate. You shall say I and state your names in full. I
Tibello Constance Musikili,
swear that the evidence I shall give
say that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
And so help me God.
And so help me God.
Thank you so much. You are now under oath. Before I hand over to the legal team to lead you in the presentation of evidence, let's hear what Honorable Skosana have to say.
Good morning, Chair. I just wanted to make sure that we have the right witness because the general is not in uniform, so I was a bit confused. But if you affirm that he's General Musikili, I'm happy. Thank you, Chair.
You are being unfair to General Musikili. When it mattered most, when we were at Khosi Mampuru Correctional Facility, General Dimpani came there and she was not in uniform.
I said that you forgot, and thank you.
Did you really say that? Okay.
For the right person, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Just want the witness to relax. Thank you, Chair.
Or you don't know her when she's not in uniform.
Yeah. But now I realize it.
Okay. Today is the day of the women. At some point, I'm going to leave this podium and request Honorable Breitenbach to come and preside. It's the day of the women today. Advocate Arendse, how much time do we need so that we know exactly how we structure our business?
I am reliably informed by my colleague that she would take approximately 3 hours, Honorable Chair. So perhaps through to 1 o'clock.
Okay. Okay. Is that what you are saying, Advocate Mohaitz?
Chair, just to put the witness at ease and make her feel comfortable so that she can convey her story. 3 hours just for safety, but hopefully we will take sooner than that.
Okay. Yeah, so we are going to run from now until you tell me that we are at the end. But I'm watching with a hawk eye. All the best, Advocate Mohaitz.
Thank you.
All the
Chair.
best, General Msikiti.
Okay, just as a matter of housekeeping, Advocate Arons has already indicated that there are 2 witness statements. Just to clarify, the purpose of the second supplementary statement was just to amplify the role that General Musikili or her current position as DNC is, just to elaborate on that. And then also, Chair, there was a mistake in her previous statement where she incorrectly referred to Minister Mkunu as a acting premier in 2018. And in this statement, she just rectifies that mistake as well. General Musikili, do you have copies of the 2 statements in front of you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I do have both statements.
Okay. I will interchangeably refer to both statements as we go along because you do cover some similar topics in the supplementary statement as well. Just as a start, General, we know that you've been in the police services for quite some time, 36 years to be exact. And in your statement, you say that you've been in the police services for an uninterrupted period of 36 years, and you've been in various operational environments at different levels up to command level. Would you just briefly talk us through your experience at SAPS, maybe starting from the bottom to your current position?
Thank you, Chairperson. To be exact, it's 36.5, but you don't relate to the half year. So by June of this year, I will complete 37 years full of my service, having joined the South African Police Service as a student constable, rising through the ranks as a police official on the environment of operations, leading up to the level of management, which I think it is the relevant levels that I will want to relate to today. I am currently a Lieutenant General, having appointed to the rank of a Lieutenant General in 2018, the 1st of April of 2018. At the time of my appointment, I was serving in the service as a detective head, the Divisional Commissioner of Detective Service. Prior to me being a Divisional Commissioner of Detective Service, I was the component head, national component head responsible for family violence, child protection, and sexual offenses unit, abbreviated as FCS. Upon my resumption of duty as Divisional Commissioner, for 2 years in that position, I was appointed a Deputy National Head of the Directorate for Priority Crime investigation, commonly known as the DPCI. In 2022, the 1st of July, I was then appointed to deputize the then National Commissioner General Masemola, who was, prior him being the National Commissioner, was the Deputy National Commissioner Policing. So I was appointed in his previous post as the Deputy National Commissioner responsible for policing. At the time, there was no other operational Deputy National Commissioner, as the then Deputy National Commissioner Crime Detection has just took a pension. Therefore, I was responsible for both operations or visible policing environment, as well as responsible for the detective forensic, as well as CI, which is the post that we now know as Deputy National Commissioner Crime Detection. In simple terms, I was responsible for both visible policing, which is the uniformed policing of the South African Police Service, as well as the detectives, forensics, and crime intelligence. Added to my position, I also had to chair the National Joint Intelligence structure, the position that I am chairing alongside the South African National Defence Force, as well as the State Security Agency. NAT Joints is the JCPS operational arm that looks at coordinating operations and coordinating all state departments. And going forward, I also have the responsibility of chairing the National Crime Combating Forum, which is the forum that coordinates operations within the service. If I can go into what DNC policing entails, Chairperson, my responsibility as the Deputy National Commissioner Policing includes all the visible policing or uniformed policing of the organization, including border management policing, and all specialized uniform policing such as dog units, mounted policing, to mention the few. Over and above that position, it's me having to also oversee the national operational coordination. This is the component within policing that is coordinating all interventions or operational interventions elsewhere in the country.
And this you deal with in paragraph 6.1 to 6.6 of your main statement, and also paragraph 8 of your supplementary statement. And I just want to maybe, I see there that you indicate that, as you've said, it includes national interventions, which extends to multidisciplinary policing operations on prioritized matters such as task teams and border police. So I'd like General to just briefly speak to your experience in relation to task team interventions and border police interventions, just to briefly indicate what your responsibilities are surrounding those.
Thank you again, Chairperson. As the Deputy National Commissioner responsible for policing, from time to time, there will be identification of pressure points, or there will be the identification of the need for interventions that will require us as the management of the police to step in any other area of policing in the country. Thus, that informs that we need to put together the teams for interventions. That includes sending the teams to or the example of those, just to be simple, it's the task teams that we are currently having. Operation Vala Umkoti that was working in 7 provinces. The GBVF that is also working in all provinces. Operation Lockdown that is focusing in the Cape Flats. That has been running from Lockdown 1. We are currently standing at Operation Lockdown 3. We have operations such as Operation Bamba in the Eastern Cape, so it will differ from area to area depending on what is the focus area or what the pressure point is in that particular province or area. This includes illegal mining operations. It will include coordinating and managing special and major events that will also include interventions in a short and in the long term. If you look at my presentation on paragraph 10, what will inform the interventions from policing perspective over and above other departments will be the National Crime Combating Forum that we will also visit or develop plans to visit the provinces, particularly during the upcoming Operation Paseka and Operation Festive Season. So this is part and parcel of coordination that will come as a package for Deputy National Commissioner Policing.
We've also learned that you have been acting as acting National Commissioner, and in particular during the time when the Minister issued the directive. Could you just maybe indicate or speak more about your experience in acting as National Commissioner and how often that happens?
Thank you, Chairperson. Since my appointment as a Deputy National Commissioner to date, I have in different time frames that will be allocated in the absence of the National Commissioner. I have thus far counted 11 occasions or instances that varies from 3 days to 3 weeks in the absence of the National Commissioner. And this started immediately after my appointment as the Deputy National Commissioner in 2022. The last acting was last week when the National Commissioner was out of the country. And this also happened during the 2024-2025, where the National Commissioner was on leave on the 31st of December 2024 until the 14th of January 2024. And I was appointed as the acting National Commissioner. And this did not exonerate me from doing my Deputy National Commissioner policing responsibilities. So at the time that I'm acting, there is no need to appoint another person to act as the DNC. A policing, meaning I will have to undertake both responsibilities at the same time.
Now we understand from what we see in your statement and the annexures that you've attached, I believe it's TCM 14 that indicates the number of times that you've acted. It appears that it's quite short periods that you would step into office, and it leaves one with the question with how much can you actually do during that time, and whether when you do step into that position for that brief period, do you know what responsibilities you should assume, and is there a discussion that happened prior to you taking office?
Prior to the National Commissioner or any commander, even myself, if I will be out of office, it is a norm that you will have to, either in writing or otherwise, inform the person that will take the responsibility to ensure continuity of the work, take him or her through what will be the expectations of the acting, if there are matters that will require attention during the period of the incumbent absence, then those will be discussed. And this is so to ensure that there is efficiency and operational continuity in the service. Whether it is for 3 days or it is for 3 weeks, as I've indicated, the longest will be 3 weeks or more, there is a need for that meeting to happen so that you receive a proper handing over. And the same will happen when the incumbent resumes duty. In this case, when the National Commissioner comes back, the same meeting will happen to brief him on the matters that I have dealt with throughout his absence. And if there are matters that I have signed off, authorized, or approved, that list will be made available and the handing over certificate will be signed between myself and the National Commissioner.
Now, the time that you were acting as National Commissioner in December 2024, when the minister issued the directive, the period which you were going to act for was from 31st December 2024 to 13 January 2025. And as General Mosikili indicated earlier, you said that you would also be required to attend to your responsibilities as DNC. Now, during the time when the minister issued the directive and while General was acting as National Commissioner, what else was on your plate at the time? And I know you deal with it in your statement in paragraph 12 of the main statement and paragraph 10 of the supplementary statement.
Thank you, Advocate. Given the gravity of the policing operations, I continued to function my duties. And at the time, it is when we were at the apex of Operation Festive Season. So we were in the period, we segment the times of every operations into before, during, and after the operation. So at the time of the 31st, we were in the during phase of the operation. And prior to the 31st, myself and the other 2 deputy national commissioners, the minister and the deputy ministers and the national commissioner, shall have crisscrossed the country in evaluating the operations, the program which my office often draft to ensure that all the operations in the country are monitored and evaluated as they are planned. Therefore, a week prior to the 31st, myself, National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, and the Minister of Police, we were clubbed together to visit 3 provinces. This is the allocated number of provinces to ensure that we don't run around all 9 provinces for efficiency. Therefore, each minister and the deputy minister will have 3 provinces to visit. I was in the group of the minister and the national commissioner, and precisely because of my position as the person who draft the operational plans, who draft this particular program of visiting the provinces, I will be with the team that will explain to the minister what is happening. We visited Eastern Cape, we proceeded to Western Cape, and we ended in KZN, the period of which we parted ways with the minister on the 28th after attending a funeral of one of the slain members in that part of KwaZulu-Natal. I came back to Gauteng in Pretoria, where I am stationed, and the National Commissioner resumed his leave on the 31st. At the time, it is the time that we have the heightened operation of Operation Valumkoti. Topical at the time was the Stilfontein issue. We shall have visited Stilfontein on the number of occasions with the minister prior to the 31st. And on the 31st, I had a operational visit in Stilfontein, and there was a media briefing that we had to undertake with the colleagues from DPM, Department of Minerals and Petroleum Resources. Upon coming back from Stilfontein, after concluding my tour of duty at Stilfontein, I went back to Pretoria to prepare for the operation in Gauteng, which was to resume at 1700 hours. I must indicate that if the operation is at 1700 hours, it means the parade should be at least 30 minutes before that time. So around 1600 hours, I was in Gauteng in preparation for the parade and the briefing of what will be happening in that evening. The festive period, especially the 31st, poses significant dangers associated in an increase of persons in public spaces, including the violent conduct, alcohol abuse, and exposing vulnerability, particularly of women and children. Therefore, it was important and imperative for me, as not only the acting national commissioner, but as the person responsible for operations in the country. And I often attend either one of the busiest provinces during this time. If I am lucky and the national commissioner is around, we will visit together. So we were in Gauteng. The duties that I undertook from 1700 hours on the 31st until 5 o'clock the next morning. Only reported on duty after receiving all the reports from the National Operational Coordination Center that everything and all the public celebrations have concluded. And I don't want to say the dust has settled down, but at least people are back at their safe spaces.
Just to the period that you were with the National Commissioner and the Minister, you've indicated that that was in December, and the last day you spent together was on the 28th of December. During that time, was there any conversation between either yourself and the Minister or between yourself and the National Commissioner in relation to the PKTT or the disbandment?
Chairperson, not at all. Advocate, we, as I have indicated, that we are attending a funeral of one of the members. The discussion or whatever conversation that would have been undertaken in my presence, it was general discussion over what was happening at the time and the continuation of the Operation Festive Season. At no stage was the mention of PKTT or any attempts to have any directive on PKTT, neither from the minister nor from the National Commissioner. I think my commander, my direct commander, is the National Commissioner. At the time, National Commissioner did not mention anything in relation to the PKTT.
Now, we know that the minister subsequently on the 31st of December, after your operation in KZN and in the Eastern Cape, issued the directive. You've indicated this happened on the 31st of December. You've indicated that you were busy with your operations or continued with your festive operations in Gauteng province. So at which point did you become aware of the minister's directive?
Thank you, Advocate. I only became aware of the email on the 2nd of January when I was back in the office. And I must indicate here that upon the investigation on the second, and the other thing that has drawn my attention to the directive was the media inquiry that was forwarded to me by the national spokesperson. And I think at the time, all media houses, News 24 already published the directive of the disbandment of the PKTT. It has then required of me as the then acting national commissioner to investigate and to want to understand whether this is the truth of what is on the media space. And subsequent, I have received the WhatsApp message from the national spokesperson on the same matter. It was later in the evening, if I'm not mistaken, it was around 18, if not past 1800 hours. Then the first thing, the investigation of the team resumed at that time, and I was informed when I get into the office the next morning of the existence of the letter. And I also noticed at that time that the letter was also emailed to me as it was sent to the National Commissioner and the staff in the National Commissioner's office.
And you have indicated the list of people to whom the directive were issued. All of this is in paragraph 14 and up to paragraph 17 of your statement. So when you became aware of the letter on the 2nd of January 2025, General, what was your reaction to it? What was going through your mind, and how did you view this directive?
To be honest and frank, I became confused. I wasn't unsure. I was also surprised, and I questioned the authenticity of the directive as I could not believe the content, and precisely because of the tone of the letter. For me, it was unexpected, and in particular, the National Commissioner, we had a discussion on the matters to attend to, and the date was just too close from the time that the National Commissioner was to start the leave and the date of the letter, that perhaps the National Commissioner have forgotten to mention this during our discussion. And I took time to interrogate, looking at various other issues that this directive will have, how it was conveyed. And I think most importantly was the fact that it was already leaked to the media when we have not yet dealt with the matter internally. So what I did was to call the immediate staff of the Office of the National Commissioner, which I normally work with in the absence of the National Commissioner. They will serve the office because it is me continuing with the Office of the National Commissioner to interrogate whether it is authentic, whether we have received the letter. And yes, it was confirmed. And I was then made to see for myself that the email was sent on the 31st of December at around 17:20. You shall recall, Advocate, that I said at the time, it is when the operations were already underway in Gauteng. And the addresses of the letter was from the Minister's Chief of Staff, Mr. Cedric Nkabinde, and he has sent the email to the National Commissioner who's on leave, General Masemula, to myself, understanding that he was aware that the National Commissioner is on leave and I am acting, because ordinarily, if the mail is meant for the National Commissioner, it will not come to me. But the understanding at the time was that it is sent to me because of my position as the acting National Commissioner. It was also sent to Major General Sebola and to Brigadier Litoko. Major General Sebola was at the time working in the Office of the National Commissioner as the Executive Secretariat, and Brigadier Lutuko is the PA of the National Commissioner. This was sent to other 5 people, CC'd to them. The main was the 4 of us, and it was also sent to the minister's advisor, Mr. Vusi Pikoli, or Advocate Vusi Pikoli, Ms. Mokhosi, who is the minister's communication director, Mr. Mtembu CU, as well as Mlandu. And then there was the 5th addressee that also received the same mail, which reflected as home13404@gmail.com. So these were the 5 people alongside myself, National Commissioner, and the 2 members in the National Commissioner's office who have received the email.
So after you received the email, did you then get in touch with the National Commissioner, and what were your subsequent instructions from the National Commissioner?
As I've indicated that I was concerned about this email, the leak thereof, and the tone, after establishing the correctness that indeed that such email was sent, I then inquire from the office staff of the National Commissioner, which is the Executive Secretariat, how the matter was dealt with, whether they have become aware of the letter on the 31st. And for me, it was because they were aware that I'm busy with the operations with the agency of the letter, they could have acted on the letter or not. And yes, the general confirmed that on receipt, they did send a WhatsApp message to the National Commission. The next thing that I did, because I want to reiterate the issue of the tone of the letter. What I did at that point in time was to get guidance and be advised. Normally, when I am acting, I will not unnecessarily contact the National Commissioner because my understanding is that he takes leave because he wants to rest. Therefore, the matters that he has left me to deal with, I will deal with them unless there is a need to contact him, any critical issue that will require him. With the gravity that the letter will have to the organization, I found it necessary at that time that I need to get guidance from the National Commissioner. I need to also get guidance because at the time there was already a media hype in this particular matter, including the inquiry that General Mukhonazi and the Chief of Staff were in a telephonic conversation, and General Mukhonazi might have said some threatening words in that. That is how it was portrayed in the media at the time. So there were 2 issues that instantly triggered me to call the National Commissioner. And the first call, he did not pick up. I continued to establish facts. And when he realized my call, he called back and we discussed the matter, which he then indicated to me that he did receive the WhatsApp, but he did not pay much attention to that WhatsApp because of the fact that he's on leave. And then he guided on how to deal with the matter.
Just before you, General, you get to what you then subsequently did after your conversation with the National Commissioner, you've indicated that the letter of the minister was leaked to the media before you even became aware that you were part of the persons to whom the email was sent. Do you know how the email got leaked through the media or to other platforms? And I also want to maybe hear your view on, you've mentioned in paragraph 16 that there was a foreign email address that you didn't know, which is the Gmail account. Do you know whose email address that is? Have you subsequently discovered whose email address that is? And do you know how it was leaked to the media?
I do not know who the email belonged to, except that the Chief of Staff of the Minister, Mr. Nkabinde, did indicated the knowledge of the email address. This is part of the investigation that I was doing at the time that myself and the National Commissioner was conversing on this matter. As I was struggling to get hold of him immediately, what I did was to establish how, including the WhatsApp that the Secretariat, Executive Secretariat sent, he sent it out as to whom did she send, and there was a proof that it went from her to the National Commissioner only, and she indicated that she could have contacted me, but she needed guidance as well because that was the first day of a National Commissioner being out of office. So part of the investigations that I was doing from the second until this time that now we are on the telephone conversation with the National Commissioner and having the staff in my office was to follow through how this communique went out and what could be the possible leak of the email to the media and who could have communicated this because it was on the News 24 just to follow up and check who will be the journalist that has communicated this. And the spokesperson as well sent me the media inquiry around 1800 the previous day, and she was also in my office. So we were doing those follow-ups just to check how the mail leaked to the media. And I recall previously when I saw emails of the organization being sent to the private emails, I will engage the people who are the senders of the email just to make sure that we avoid this type of leakages. So I still do not know even today who the email belonged to, but I'm just forgetting. I think I did call the Chief of Staff and he did explain who the email belongs to.
Now, in your statement, General, you indicate that in paragraph 27, that you instructed Brigadier Litoko to send 3 emails to various heads that would be affected by the director. Was that on the instruction of the National Commissioner?
Instruction, I will rather opt to say the advice. Remember, I call him for advice and for guidance because it was for the first time that something of this nature happens when I'm acting. I think I acted 5 or more times before this particular issue came, and I wanted to understand. So the guidance that the National Commissioner gave, I conveyed it immediately with the Office of the Minister, the PA of the National Commissioner who was assisting me at that time, which is Brigadier Litoko, to then continue after the guidance of the National Commissioner that he will deal with the matter when he comes back, because if you read that directive, it required the initial presentation to be made on mid-January. So it said mid-January. So my interpretation and analysis of that was that it was a calculated period that by this time the National Commissioner will be back in office. So when he said other nitty-gritties in this particular communique will be dealt with when I come back. In the meantime, he requested that I can give the directives to start preparing what the directive wanted. Remember, I said, he said to me, I received the WhatsApp, but I did not pay much attention to it until now that I see you guys are calling me on the same matter, and I was not the only person who called the National Commissioner in relation to the same matter.
In paragraph 25 of your main statement, General, you indicate that General Sibia also approached the National Commission and got in contact with the National Commissioner in relation to the director. And then you also said that he sidelined you. Could you maybe elaborate on what you mean by that?
As I was busy with this junior staff that was in my office, my colleague, which is the norm, normally we will converge at the boardroom with National Commissioner at the beginning of the week. And because we were in the middle of the festive season, it was no surprise as the Deputy National Commissioner walks into my office, and I then release the members because I can't talk with senior officers in their presence. So in our discussion, he was also checking what is it that we need to do. I think it was a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. I'm speaking under correction. And the matter of the letter then of the directive then came into that conversation. And as I thought I will narrate what needs to happen because it is on the media space, I already directed Brigadier Lutuko that this is what the National Commissioner has directed. This is what we need to do. That is when he walked in. So I was about to tell him, this is how we are going to deal with the matter. But then before even saying that, I was surprised that he was raising the matter and going further to indicate that I contacted the National Commissioner. So I think the issue of sideline for me is the protocol of the police. It dictates that if the National Commissioner is on leave, there is a person that will resume that responsibility. And there will be a communique that will go to all email users in the police. So everybody was aware. It is the 3rd of the month, 3 days after the National Commissioner have started the leave. Obviously, we have known even days prior to him going that by this time, the National Commissioner will be out of office. This is the person that will be acting as the National Commissioner. So the expectation, particularly at that level, is that you will know that if the National Commissioner is not in the office, because he sometimes acts, and the expectation is that you will respect that office, not a person, but the office. Therefore, you need to speak to the person who is in position at the time. But then the surprise that I found myself in is when he responded to say, I already called the National Commissioner and he said, I must do this. So in my view, that was unnecessarily. And why will you call somebody that is on leave when I'm here? Unless he calls, I'm not available on the phone, he gets frustrated that the matter is getting worse. Let me rather call the accounting officer. There is nothing wrong for him to call the National Commissioner. I must say, there is nothing wrong. But I will expect that before calling the National Commissioner, establish from me if I know how to deal with the matter before you even call the National Commissioner. But I want to reiterate, there's nothing wrong. If you are on leave and there is a matter that requires you, the office can contact you. But at that level, I was expecting that, Madam, do you know, are you aware of this? It's already on the media space. How are we going? Perhaps me and him could have discussed, and I wouldn't even have called the National Commissioner because we will have at least come up with the ways of dealing with the matter. But saying I've already contacted the National Commissioner, and what National Commissioner told me, it's what he was saying the National Commissioner told him.
Understand. But it could also be that he has a very good working relationship with the National Commissioner and probably felt comfortable to call because of the nature of the relationship they have.
It could be, and I believe it is.
So in paragraph 27, General, you indicate that you then instructed Litoko to issue the email, and one of the people that you have instructed Brigadier Litoko to send the email to was General Sibia. And so we know, when we've heard evidence, that General Sibia then subsequently implemented the directive of the minister. But we now see from your statement that he was following your instructions in the implementation of the directive. Is that correct?
It is correct. I even spoke to Brigadier Lituko prior to him walking in. So by the time that Brigadier Lituko left my office, she was already preparing the emails. And I'm saying 3 different emails because for me, I was cautious of the sensitivity of the email and the fact that it has already leaked. So I did not want to communicate the whole letter to everybody. I cannot perpetuate what, in my view, was a leaking of information to undesired recipients. So the 3 emails is because in the police, the national commissioner will be deputized by 3 people, which is myself in policing, which is General Sibia, and was affected by the email. I was also affected in the sense of the border policing, and there is a acting national commissioner that is responsible for support services or corporate services in the police. That is simply administration. She was also affected by this directive in that there are issues of HR that were also mentioned. I think first point of the letter required the halting of the crime intelligence post, which is the process that over and above the divisional commissioner of crime intelligence, it will affect the administration of the service in terms of filling of the post. So HR is responsible. Hence, I requested that the parts, Brigadier Lituko must send the email with specific directive to each one of us, meaning what will come to my office will be in relation to the border policing, because it was mentioned that I had to also prepare, or my office had to prepare by the time that the national commissioner comes back to office, I should be ready with that report. And there was an issue of PKTT. PKTT in the main, it's doing the investigation, but I think even the national commissioner did indicated or did explain when he was here that all the national interventions are managed and coordinated from national coordination, operational coordination. So it did affect my office as well. It is a multidisciplinary team that involves not only investigators, although they are most of the time carrying dockets, but there are combat teams that are involved, there are intelligence, so where you get the team that is formed with multiple competencies and operatives from different environments, the coordination thereof is done through the national coordination. So my relevance to receive that email as well, although I have received it in my capacity as the acting national commissioner, was to prepare what will then come on the report of the minister in relation to the disbandment of the national intervention teams, as well as to deal with the issues of border policing.
Now we see that you have sent this email to all 3 DNC officers and not just to General Sibia. You've sent it to yourself, as you've indicated, DNC policing, and this is on page 47. And you've sent it to DNC SS. And then you've sent it to DNC crime detection, which I believe is General Sibia's post. And the email is very brief. It doesn't seem to request, it doesn't give a lot of direction. It basically on page 48 of your bundle. In the email, it simply requested that he is required to communicate the deactivation to the relevant team, and that his office is further requested to submit a close-up report on 14 January 2025 for NATSCOM's consideration and sign off to the minister. There's no further direction given other than that which I've just read out to you.
Remember, I said one of the issues is that the email has already leaked, but I did not want it to leak further because you will send it, if, as you can see on page 48, that it was sent to the staff officer or the office administration of General Sibia and himself, as well as General Sibola, who at the end of the day need to coordinate all these reports for the National Commission. So I just extrapolated the instruction as it was on the main letter to the general. Remember, I also said I was with General Sibia in the office. So the issue of the letter was no longer a secret. The letter was there, the directive was there, but on the email was just to extrapolate that information that is required. And on the 14th, when the National Commissioner comes back, we'll present to him and further directive will then be given from there. On the emails that were sent, each one of us received a different email that was specific on the area of the office's mandate and when will the report be required. In my case, it will be earlier so that the team, the divisional commissioner and her team can come and present, preparing that when the national commissioner, I will include that report in my handing over report 1, but 2, this is the requirement that I must also respond on the matters that relates to my office. And in relation to the posts, as well to the DNC responsible for support services to respond to the issues of the holding of the post and what the directive requires.
So General, what I'm hearing is that you looked at the director and you basically identified which DNC is responsible for each of the issues that were raised in the directive, and then you subsequently issued an instruction to each DNC in respect of their respective responsibilities.
That is correct.
So after the letter was issued, after your email of the 3rd of January, was there any other step that you took or any further steps you took in furtherance of the implementation of the directive?
Apart from working on the reports and engaging with the team, in this case, my team, to deal with the issues that relates to my environment, there is no further directive that or actions that in my case I have undertaken, considering the fact that we're still in the operational mood. And I think at the time it's the preparations for January 8th statement and other programs that follows immediately in January, the reopening of the schools as it is part of Operation Festive Season, post-festive season event. So the work continues as normal, but focusing on the team's preparation for what is required.
So when you requested reports by 14 January, was your understanding that when the National Commissioner is back, that he would take the responsibility to implement the directive further?
As we have discussed with the National Commissioner and the discussion between myself and General Spear at the time that he was in my office, yes, the expectation was all of us will be ready by the 14th. The first meeting when the National Commissioner assumed office will be to table this, and the fact that he was also aware because of the conversation that we had earlier. And the agreement or guidance that he will deal with the matter when he comes back to the office.
Now we know that everything was not finalized by the 14th of January, and that there was subsequently various engagement in relation to what the disbandment should look like. Presentations were made to the minister to propose an alternative, which was considered sort of a gradual disbandment instead of an immediate disbandment. We see in your statement from paragraph 29 that you participated in some of those engagements. What was your view on the disbandment and on the presentations that were made in relation to the disbandment of the PKTT?
Subsequent to the return to office of the National Commissioner, different environments did presented to the National Commissioner on the way forward, and I take it would have been directed to respective environments on what to do. In my case, we had the meeting on the visible policing with the minister that we undertook on the 27th of January, if I'm not mistaken. I do have documents, I will confirm that, but I take it is on the 27th when I presented to the minister. But then subsequent to that meeting, there were other engagements as well with the minister that led to the meeting on the 6th of March, or the meeting which I attended here in Cape Town. I think we were attending the portfolio committee meeting a day before when the presentations were made. And on the 6th of March, the meeting was held at the provincial office of in Cape Town, where the two colleagues joined us. That is the divisional commissioners, divisional commissioner of detectives and forensic services, General Sintumule, and divisional commissioner for crime intelligence, Lieutenant General Kumalo. With them, it was the Lieutenant Colonel that was leading the presentation, which I believe is what went into the discussion between General Masemola and the team that is responsible for the PKTT, because the meeting was specifically to deal with the issues of PKTT. So in that meeting, the presentation was prepared, I take, with the direction, and the discussion was over that presentation. Over and above myself, the National Commissioner and the Deputy National Commissioner Crime Detection, it was the office of the minister, but it was the minister himself, his special advisor, as well as the chief of staff. So those are the only people that were in that meeting where presentation was made. In that presentation, there were recommendations that were tabled before the minister.
Now, my other question that I asked was your reaction to it. In your statement, you indicate that in your role as Deputy National Commissioner, you are also responsible for task team units, including the political task team. This is stated in paragraph 32 of your main statement. So my question was, in your experience, in your work with task teams related matters, what was your view on this disbandment of the PKTT? Did you think it was a necessary and a correct step to take?
We often respond, and when necessary, will establish the intervention teams. So I do not see at the time that we will just move from having this task team and having it disbanded. Particularly because when the team was established in 2018, I was the Divisional Commissioner of Detective Service. I happened to be one of the people that attended the interministerial committee meeting and subsequent meeting in KZN when the team was established. I know, or at the time I was aware of the circumstances that has led to the establishment of the PKTT in particular. But I think your question is around national intervention teams. Even as I am sitting here, I do have teams out to do the national interventions in assistance or augmentation of the provincial team to supplement the capacity that the provinces are having to tackle a particular issue or a particular matter. We had Operation Valumkoti that was in 7 provinces. All 7 provinces did receive a small team that will assist them on areas or competencies that we believe from the reserve teams of medium and high risk teams that are national teams. Remember, I said part of the portfolio of policing is to have specialized operational team or visible policing team. So these teams are there to assist when the need arises to intervene in any province. If the province can deal with the matter, well and good, provincial commissioners in their capacity can establish the provincial teams and deal with the matter. But if the matter escalates to head office, that is where my role come in to coordinate and establish the team. That will either include the NAT joints format. I said NAT joints, it's coordination of other departments that are relevant. And in the JCPS, you will obviously have all the law enforcement, you will have the NPA, you will have DOJ in terms of them guiding and assisting the operational teams in the interpretation of the laws and so on and so forth. So in this particular case of the PKTT, in my view, the manner in which it has to be disbanded, all task team will have to draw up the demob plan. We have what we call demobilization plan that will give step-by-step activities that should be undertaken, including to reduce the numbers if the threat has been minimized. So at the time that the letter came to say the team must be disbanded, a consideration should have been taken that it is not only the docket carriers that are involved. There is a combat team that PKTT is working with. There are crime intelligence operatives that are collectors and analysts that have been paid with the PKTT. There are forensic teams that have been paid to assist the team in finalization or speedy finalization of their matters. Then you'll have investigators. You will also have other departments, as I have said. It will either take the shape of internally NCCF, National Crime Combating Format, or the NAT joints format. So in this case, we had to get other role players that will assist in finalization of the cases, the PGIs that will be required in particular cases. That's one. Two, when you coordinate events or interventions of this nature, you will get capacity from elsewhere in the country, depending on the competencies and the experience of the persons that you will want to send to do the interventions. Therefore, you will have people that will be coming either from Gauteng or Free State and so on. And the 31st, we have already concluded the call-up instruction. I think earlier in the committee as well as at the commission, it was explained that the call-up instruction was extended. The request was made to extend. If granted, then you will make arrangements with accommodation where the team should go, the SNT, because as they are operating, they will require SNT. There are resources in the form of physical resources that will be dedicated to the team. So when you have national intervention team, even the province, you cannot just wake up the next morning and say, team, you can go back. We need to consider that there might have been commitments that have been made in terms of booking of the accommodation, the dockets as well. There is a process that the investigator will take, the relationship between the investigator and the prosecutor that is dealing with the matter, the relationship between the investigator and the witnesses, the family of the victims, the informants that have assisted you to solve the case. So you cannot just disband the team without considering all those factors and drawing up a clear plan of demobilizing these teams that we have sent to KZN and to avoid fruitless expenditure if such commitments have already been made.
Now, the cost or the financial burden that comes along with the operation of task teams was also said to be one of the considerations that the minister gave when he made a decision to disband the task team. It was said that the cost related to the operation of task team is quite heavy. It places a huge financial burden on other policing operations. And the minister was of the view that, maybe task team should be done away with altogether. And I think this is when the conversation around the murder and robbery unit was had, and whether that might be the appropriate intervention tool to deal with matters that the task team is currently dealing with. Do you think that the task teams can be done away with as a intervention tool? Would you be able to effectively conduct police operations without the use of task teams? Or is it a necessary tool?
Task teams will remain a necessary tool in my view, in that part of why the task teams are considered, it's because of the challenges that the province itself or the business units, whatever area it is, normally it will be the provinces because crime happens in the provinces, and the task teams that are established most of the time will be to intervene on matters of crime. And I do not see anytime soon that we will completely do away with the task team. That is in my view. And the reason for this being that there are many factors that contribute to the establishment of the task team. One being the local capacity might not be adequate. That's number one. Number two, at times there are issues that we cannot run away from as we are living in South Africa, and from time to time we hear issues of collusions and maybe the reluctance of the local policing capacity to deal with the matters because they are living in the same area and they might be afraid to deal with the matters. The political task team prior to the 2018 team that was established, and when it was established, the majority of the team members were from the detectives, and recall that I said I was the divisional commissioner at the time. We had to take or get people from outside of certain areas, even within the province itself. The then acting provincial commissioner, who is the provincial commissioner of KZN, was involved, and we had to take members from elsewhere in the province and send them. There were initially 4 teams. In that one PKTT teams, it was divided into 4 teams that were to work at different districts where the political killing were rife in the KZN. And subsequent to that, I think there was also a discussion to have a similar approach. We had a problem in Limpopo, in Jerusalem. At the time, we had problems in Tshwane, in Gauteng, on political attacks and elsewhere in the country. So we built that team that should assist, supplement the current formation in the form of a station or in the provincial or district teams. As we speak, we still have interventions elsewhere in the country, including in the Western Cape. So to say that the task teams will anytime soon be disbanded, and I want to also go back to the issue of the work study that was conducted at the time. I think it's communicated from time to time in these commissions as MRA report, which was concluded in 2019 when I was still in the detective environment. And one of the recommendations of the models that the investigator, the organizational development investigators came up with was that the issues of the establishment of the units and the team will depend on challenges of each province or each environment. So you might have the working solution with the establishment of which were established. I think at the time I already have component heads at national office that were overseeing the murder and robbery units because we're looking at various other challenges within the space. But the recommendation was not conclusive that if you establish murder and robbery in one of the options, if you establish murder and robbery, you should do away with the task teams because you will, from time to time, do require the supplementary capacity to what the province it's having or dealing with.
And I see you deal with that in paragraph 37 of your main statement. General, there were other people that were not opposed to the idea of disbanding the PKTT. And in paragraph 30, you indicate some of those people were Lieutenant General Sibia and the Chief of Staff. They were not opposed to having the PKTT disbanded. And they, in fact, were opposed to some of the proposal made in relation to a gradual disbandment of the PKTT. Now, I understand you were in charge of operations and interventions. The objection by the Chief of Staff and Lieutenant General Sibia, would you say those were properly considered, or do you think there's any validity to it? What I'm trying to get to, what was their role or participation in the formation and disestablishment of task team? And why were they so opposed to the idea to having a gradual disbandment of the task team?
The motivation to have the gradual disbandment was coming from the presentation that have been prepared by both divisional commissioners. I will say both of them because they own up to that presentation, and I take these are the meetings that could have been undertaken with the national commissioner from the time that he came back on the 14th of January until that date of the 6th of March, a meeting with the minister. So the opposition that colleagues have and the chief of staff was when the gradual disbandment was proposed. And I think myself and the national commissioner and myself, I was coming from what I've already alluded to of commitments that would have been made in terms of sending people to KZN, where they're coming from and how the demop needs to happen, the issues of the docket itself. You cannot work the docket that was already cold or dormant. Then when it is a court docket, you just hand over to another person. There is the issues of the trust. There's an issue of having to consult other departments as well. So the gradual was based on that. And they were opposing to say, but the directive of the minister is that it must be immediately disbanded. And I think I do not need to further venture into the immediate. It was explained at length in all the engagements that were undertaken. So that gradual or winding down was based on what will immediate have, or the impact that immediate disbandment have on what I have already outlined in terms of the trust, in terms of taking dockets to court. I think I even made an example that it cannot be disbanded because there are combat team that are assisting, and PKTT's investigation of the dockets that were going to court had an ad hoc cases. Ad hoc cases will be the cases that as and when you go through the investigation of the case, you will either find that it is in a way linked to the main docket. I think that as well needs to be clarified, what was contained on that ad hoc. So you will investigate the case of theft of a firearm, and that firearm is the one that was found used in the main docket. So that is how ad hoc came about. So you cannot separate those cases. Although you have not yet concluded on one, or charge a person on the other ad hoc case, but the main docket, there is a process that has been undertaken. Therefore, it was then suggested, can it be done gradually? And I think there we did indicated that from the operations, from the combat team, I will not withdraw all the members because they are also assisting the investigators to collect the suspects when going to court, to escort as well. It is a very volatile environment of investigating the murder cases. So the combat team will be left so that they can continue to assist with the escorts and taking the teams. But in terms of the investigators in that meeting, which I was participating, and I remember very well that the issues were these court dockets will still need to be taken to court. Who takes them to court? If you are saying this investigator Mosikili, who is coming from Free State, must go back to Free State and leave the docket in KZN. So those were the issues that will impact that sudden closure of the team. Therefore, it was not practicable in terms of operations. Hence, that gradual disbandment was suggested, which at some point the minister acceded to, and he said they must go back and rework that plan that was presented to him and consider the facts, give the timeline and the number of personnel that will be left with the PKTT for that gradual. And that gradual could mean when the docket is finalized, and it cannot be a month, it cannot be 2 months. We don't know when the matter will be finalized at court. So if all the cases were finalized, period, you will have to remove. I will be glad to get my combat teams back because I have bigger problems in the country to deal with.
There were a lot of questions surrounding how the implementation was done, and I may even say a bit of criticism into, or rather how the steps that were taken by Lieutenant General Sibiya when he then subsequently conducted the implementation of the directive. We know he sent letters out on the 7th of January. He requested the dockets. So there were a lot of questions asked about the manner in which he's then implemented the directive and whether he did the right thing. I want to know from you, General Mosikili, when you sent out the directive, or rather the instruction to General Sibiya on the 3rd of January, do you think he overstepped or he did something outside of what you have instructed in that email? When you said to him, implement, this is the directive I got, I know it's only 2 lines. What he subsequently did by requesting reports and requesting the dockets, do you think he overstepped your instruction of 3 January 2024?
Not entirely. However, as I've alluded to the fact that you have members that are serving in the team from elsewhere, from other business units within the organization, I think it was very, very imperative for both of us to sit and finalize the issues of withdrawing the teams. Like I say, with every operational plans, when they are drawn, there will be the part of demobilizing. How are you going to demobilize the teams? Therefore, when the directive was given by himself to collect the dockets, he is the custodian of dockets, or the divisional commissioner of detective service is the custodian of the dockets, the project leader. It was between the two of them to decide what should happen. And I take that can only happen with the direction of the national commissioner. So overreaching on collecting dockets, it will affect operations in closing up the intervention in terms of the protocols that needs to be followed to demobilize the team as agreed. I think that is one area. Then the second area is to get these members back to their stations of origin. Hence, I'm saying maybe it could have been better that in that we could have found amicable way of getting these members back into their respective areas. And you'll recall that my directive on the 3rd of January was for him to prepare the report. How he prepares the report, we were going to sit together with the National Commissioner to have that report presented. And we should, as the management, especially policing operations, agree on certain issues and certain factors. But in respect of the dockets, detectives and himself are the custodians of docket, how they deal with the dockets, as long as addressing the dockets will assist the country in deterring the furtherance of that particular matter, it doesn't matter for me. But it will be quite disturbing that the intervention that is meant to deter or to prevent the furtherance of that particular crime or commodity will be affected by the steps that we undertake when we withdraw the resources.
But your instruction, the other steps like the dockets would have been when you are now no longer acting as National Commissioner. Your instruction to him was limited to communicate the deactivation to the relevant team and to submit a closeout report.
As
That's what you-
extrapolated from the minister's directive, as advised with the National Commissioner that when I come back, we'll deal with the matter. So any further directive was to be undertaken from the 14th of January. And if the National Commissioner will have a separate meeting between himself and General Sibia on how to deal with the matter, it will be in regards to crime intelligence, because the project leader was based at crime intelligence, as well as what should happen with the docket. So for me, it is only on the issues of coordination and the operations only.
Thank you, General. Then I'd like to move on to the part of the directive that affected your responsibilities. And you deal with this in paragraph 23 to 33 of your supplementary statement.
I am there.
Okay. Now, I just also want to go to a copy of the directive. You could just open that as well. That is on page 44. Yeah, 43 of the bundle. You'll find the copy of the directive.
I found it.
Okay. So in the minister's directive in paragraph, paragraph 2, it deals with ports of entry. And the minister in that directive is requesting, well, you've indicated, first of all, that you are responsible for border policing. You deal with this in paragraph 23 of your supplementary statement, where you say that you are responsible for border policing, which is a component of visible policing in operations. So this would have directly affected you.
That's correct.
So my question to you is, the minister in his directive requests a review of personal impact and efficiency in relation to border policing and ports of entry. And he asked that a plan be presented to him sometime in January 2025. Could you first explain to us, and maybe I should just start off by reading paragraph 2 full and put it fully on the record. In paragraph 2 of the minister's directive, he says that it is common cause that all South African ports of entry are managed by border Border Management Authority with SAPS playing a critical role in the same space, which cannot be overemphasized. In line with this role, SAPS personnel impact and efficiencies should be reviewed from time to time with an objective of enhancing their role in improving security in the country's port of entry. The Minister says, I, in terms of Section 207, direct you to develop a new plan in this regard and present it to the next Ministry Management Executive Committee meeting later in January 2025. Key reference points to include, but not limited to, the following: a comprehensive analysis of the current challenges of security in the ports of entry and exit, the SAPS perspective, and a comprehensive operational and remedial action plan based on a policy of rotation of staff members, amongst others. Could you maybe first, General, explain to us what Border Management Authority is and what it's responsible for?
Thank you, Advocate Chair. I want to start responding to this area, perhaps to share a little history of where South African Police Service, it comes in operating at the border space. BMA was established or enacted under DHA, Department of Home Affairs, and it started its operations in 2022. Prior to the BMA operating at the space, there were multiple agencies that were operating at the border space, of which South African Police Service was one of them. And in terms of the border control and access, it was performed by the South African Police Service. Upon the establishment of Border Management Authority, the South African Police Service was then required to coexist, particularly dealing with crime prevention and combating and crowd control within the same space of border control. The BMA, I think on my paragraph, now coming to your question of what BMA is. On paragraph 25, in terms of section 4, subsection 2 of the Act, it gives BMA the responsibility of border law enforcement functions, which refers to the facilitation and management of legitimate movement of people and goods at the ports of entry. Section 5 of the same Act of BMA makes it clear that the authority's role is focused on compliance, in other words, monitoring and enforcement, such as verifying passport, the responsibility which was previously done by Department of Home Affairs, inspecting agricultural inputs. There was a Department of Fisheries Agriculture that was dealing with that matter. The enforcement of port health, which is the Department of Health. Section 18 and 19 of BMA Act empowers officers to stop any person, inspect and search and seize from that particular individual any article where non-compliance is suspected. This provision functions within the administrative framework and is designed to protect the legal movement. That is basically what BMA is doing. And you will have the South African Police Service that operates elsewhere in the country in terms of the Constitution, Section 205, subsection 3, which does not limit any activities of the South African Police Service on the prevention, investigation, and combating of crime and addressing the issues of crowd control at any space in the country. Whereas on the BMA, it will give them the 10-kilometer from the borderline. So with the South African Police Service, you will operate elsewhere in the country, including at the border control. So the discussion went since the plan to establish the BMA up until the time where Section 197 of the Constitution was invoked, which gives powers of BMA to 4 departments, or 4 departments gave power to BMA, with the exception of the South African Police Service, South African National Defence Force, as well as South African Revenue Service Customs that will operate alongside with BMA at the borders. And this is covered on Section 5 of BMA, subsection, I think it's 1C of the Act. I'm speaking under correction. I will just verify the correct, but I know that in Section 5, there are sub-paragraphs that outlines, and there is a specific clause or provision of the law that these entities will have to coexist and work in the border space, and that is currently the space. So the discussion that the minister required was for us to review and develop a new plan in this regard. I'm reading verbatim from, quoting from the minister's directive, a new plan in this regard and present it in the next ministry's meeting. So the new plan that was required was to review the efficiency, which I believe at the time minister would have received information that South African Police Service is no longer efficient or it's not effective to operate, and it was then decided by himself that we need to review the operations of the South African Police Service at the borderline. That is what was requested for us to present.
Could you just briefly deal with the plan, briefly discuss what that plan looked like, and you deal with it in paragraphs 30 and 31 of your statement, your supplementary statement. And also, you've mentioned other stakeholders, other agencies that were also involved. Did they participate in the meeting during the presentation that was made to the minister?
The meeting was held with the minister on the 22nd of January to present what the office have prepared at the time. I'm saying at the border, the coexistence or the departments that are operating alongside BMA, it's South African Police Service, South African Defence Force, as well as the BMA. But when we talk ports, we have in 72 land ports, we also have airports, we also have seaports. So the footprint of the South African Police Service and some of these departments that I'm mentioning coexist elsewhere in the ports of entry. When a requirement it's made by the minister to review the border policing plan, it will entail all other ports of entry, inclusive of land, sea, and airports. Therefore, in that particular meeting, ourselves, South African Police Service, particularly the Division Visible Policing and Operations component, there are multiple components within Division Visible Policing and Operations, of which border management is one of the 5 components under Division Visible Policing and Operations. We prepared that presentation that was done by the component head and the leadership of DNC Policing. We also had in that meeting, which is the capacity or the entity that was invited by the minister to be in the meeting, it is AXA. And there was also the commissioner of PMA and the team of PMA. They also had the presentation. So I take they have received the same directive I take. It's just that when we arrive there, we find ourselves sitting with all these other entities that are operating. For an example, AXA, it's operating at certain airports, not at the land and seaports. And BMA is operating at the ports of entry as it is established for that purpose. And South African Police Service, over and above the ports, it also operates. Even here where we are sitting, we do have members of the South African Police Service at the key points and elsewhere in the country. So in the main, what the plan that we presented covered as the issues that became the focal area was the rotation of members. We thought perhaps the efficiency and the effectiveness of members are affected by the fact that they have operated in the space for the longest time, which is the process that we undertook even prior to the appointment of the minister into the portfolio. And this was done to address the issues of corruption and collusion, of which we, from time to time, as the leadership, do get the reports of the wrongdoing that our members are doing. So we then suggested, as a focal point for this reviewed plan, to consider the rotation of members. We also look at the investment in tactical teams within the border so that they can rotate from time to time. We have implemented, particularly now in Easter, in Operation Paseka, Operation Festive Season, we do have this rotation teams that will operate at border policing. And the intention is to combat syndicate crimes within the borderlines and also to provide a rapid reaction capability. We also suggested or look at one focal area, which is to revive sea border maritime teams to combat criminal syndicates exploiting the shipping lane and the trafficking of illegal goods, organized poaching and marine resources. We also spoke about the enhanced provincial border policing by establishing operational monitoring and coordination, of course, to cap what I've already alluded to earlier of people making comfort zone and off-ramping at that particular space of operation. And lastly, to establish a national incident monitoring and crime analysis capabilities with the relevant operational coordination. So this way, the focal areas that we've presented to the minister. Of course, other departments, AXA as well as BMA also came with their inputs into the meeting on how to enhance and improve on the operations at the border.
Then generally indicating from paragraph 31 that there were subsequently various meetings and various platforms in relation to, I take it, the respective presentations that were made during the meeting. You also indicate that you sort of formulated your own opinion on what you perceived the intention behind the engagement was. Could you just briefly talk us through that?
The way forward from that meeting was the direction to the NAT joints to go and develop a plan that will address the deficiencies and the challenges on the border management or border policing management space. The directive that prior to this meeting, the JCPS DGs have already given that to the NAT joint structure to deal with. As a chairperson of NAT joints, I was then expected to lead the team that will go and take this matter forward. The first meeting was between myself and BMA because we did not have that much issue with AXA. Otherwise, the NAT Joints Priority Committee include every stakeholder and every role player that is operating in that space. So I have convened that meeting where I met at the NAT Joints Coordination Center with the team of BMA, and we then have to look at amicable solutions to address the issue. And it was not one meeting. There were subsequent other meetings that were held, interministerial meeting of the JCPS ministers meeting, of which presentations were made. And in one of the meetings, after developing a plan, the team came up with 3 recommendations. On the 3 recommendations, after discussing with the principal structure before getting to the minister, which is the DGs, that presentation was withdrawn because it was not approved or endorsed by the DGs. We had to review and revise that particular presentation because it had in it an option that was not viable, that was ventilated before in several other meetings, even prior to the establishment of BMA, and it was found not a viable option of transferring functions. And in that meeting where we presented the other plan other than the one that was withdrawn, the minister then presented an option that was appearing on the presentation that was withdrawn, particularly in that meeting approving that particular option that was transferring the functions, which the legal services, state law advisors ventilated on it, and it could not be a viable option. 1, 2, that it's the matter that was not even in the purview of that particular structure to decide on whether the functions should be reviewed or be transferred. Therefore, in that process of these engagements, I then realized that the issue was not necessarily to have a revised plan of working otherwise or working in another methods of addressing the policing structure that is at the borderline. It was precisely to look at the issues of the functions. That is where I'm coming to say I then established with all these engagements that the bottom line of this engagement on the border policing was in relation to functions and transferring of functions, which could not happen. Hence, in 2022, when BMA was established, it could only coexist with these 4 other or 3 other departments, and BMA being the 4th.
General, so when you speak of transferring of functions, does it mean of what you say here in paragraph 31, which was, in paragraph 31, you said, through various meetings on various platforms which subsequently took place after the presentation was made to the minister, it became clear to me that the intention was to have the border police removed from the borders and ports of entry and to have BMA solely responsible for border security. This includes transferring of functions and resources of the police to the BMA. So that transferring the functions that you're talking about is having the police completely removed from border security and only have BMA.
That's correct. This is my observation with discussions that went through this particular matter beyond the meeting of the 22nd of January. As we engaged, as the directive were given to the adjoints to prepare the presentation, and I think at some point why I'm saying this was the ultimate perceived outcome of this engagement is where the presentation was made by the BMA that, but we have been requesting the transfer of functions of SAPS. And in that particular one, I was expecting the NADJOIN's presentation, but I was surprised that over and above prepared NADJOIN's presentation that would have developed collectively, there was this other presentation that was made that was solely talking about the transferring of functions.
Just from a layman's perspective, what would the implications be if border policing is removed and there is this transfer of functions to BMA? What would the implications of that be?
Legally, the transfer of functions, it's not possible. It couldn't be an issue. It requires other processes to be undertaken, which was above the structures that were dealing with that particular matter at the time. So the issue of transferring of functions of the South African police members in this regard that function that was required, which it's already with the BMA in terms of section 4 of the BMA Act and the section 13(6) of the South African Police Service. It's the powers that are conferred to the member of South African Police Service, meaning myself as the oath taker of the South African Police Service as a member. Those powers are conferred to myself as an individual. Neither the National Commissioner nor the Minister can transfer such functions. So it had that legal bounds that it cannot be transferred. That's one. Two, the Constitution of this country, Section 2053, warrants or expect of the South African police member to address the issues of crime in terms of prevention, investigation, combating, and the restoring of law and order. And it does not have limitations where the law and order, where the prevention, where the combating, where the investigation should be done. Doing so will then be South African Police Service abdicating its own responsibilities of addressing crimes at that space of the border to another person. And I can imagine what will come from the civil society that the South African Police Service have left the space and left the vacuum. Instead of preventing crime at the space, they have left the area. So the functions of South African Police Service are not limited or confined to a certain space and not the other. Hence, it is impossible, or it was in my view, that it's something that cannot just happen unless certain processes legally are followed, and that were explored as well.
What would the consequences be if there is no border, if police, if SAPS is removed from border security? What would the consequences, or what would you consider the potential consequences would be?
As already alluded, that crime will run rampant and will not be able to contain or respond to crime as it is expected of the South African Police Service. And I think we know how challenging and volatile the borderline is in the South African Police Service, with the limited resources that all these entities that are operating in that space, we still have a challenge. If you are to remove the South African Police Service and put them somewhere 30 kilometers away from the border, the response, if crime is committed, and there are other functions, much as I have related to Section 4 of the BMA Act, they cannot deal with the issues of firearm control. There are issues of the Explosive Act that if it happens, it means members must come. If there are issues of protest, I think in the same year of 2024, if we'll recall that there were issues that were happening in the borderline of one of the sister countries where criminals were reported to have escaped and so forth and so on. So if you don't have policing in that space, it means we have left that space vacant.
Thank you, General. I think just lastly, you, and coming to the end of your statements, you deal with allegations that were made about IPA charges, and you say you deal with this in paragraph 38 to I think it's 63. No, actually, it goes further than that. It's 72 of your statement. You deal with it quite extensively, where you explain try to explain to the committee what happened in relation to the investigations that were conducted by IPID. General, could you just maybe briefly, because that appears to be omitted from your statement, what are the true facts surrounding the events that led up to the IPID investigation against you. As I understand, you were the victim, but it appears that you were then subsequently investigated by IPID. Could you just briefly explain what happened and how you ended up being investigated by IPID?
Thank you. Yes, indeed, the comments that came through these processes last, I think, was made even at the ad hoc committee by one of my colleagues, that I was facing serious investigation by IPID. And it also came from the committee itself, ad hoc committee, I think twice, if I'm not mistaken, as I was following the proceedings, that I will not be involved in the development of the plans because I'm embroiled in the IPID matter. And subsequent to that, I had to clarify on my first submission to the committee what has been the issue or what took place that has led to the investigation of, or me being investigated by the IPID. There were previously social media posts by one of the whistleblowers in this country. I think she also appeared before the committee, that I am rogue, number one, and that I have been implicated in a theft, whereas I have opened a case of theft where I was the victim at one of the macro stores in Centurion, and subsequent to that, property was taken from myself. The case was investigated by the provincial investigative unit, the organized crime team, because upon realizing the theft that happened, I approached the staff at that area, the security staff at macro, and in some of the engagements, I was told that, in fact, I wanted to check what could have happened in that process, and the security officer advised that I should go open the case and the case will be full. I was going for the case, but I wanted, because I had this property and the cell phone that was taken immediately, so I proceeded to Littleton Police Station to open a case. Upon opening the case, I established that there is a syndicate that is operating in that space. Hence, I gave a call to the provincial investigation team that maybe it will require a broader focus, so that not another woman that will go in that space, because I was told in that a shop itself, there were more than one victims that were affected, and all of them being women. So for me, with my policing intuition, I said, not another woman after this. And after all, I expected to prevent crime in this country. So let me make sure that another woman do not come here and become a victim, and other stores that were mentioned by the security official, including the threats that when they approached this syndicate, they were faced with. So after that, opening that case, then the stories that went into the social media was that I did not, or the stuff were not stolen from me because I was involved with this particular syndicate. So that is how it went on the social media. So subsequent to that, the requests were sent to every investigative body in this country. All the media houses receive such, and I recall very well, I was attending the SONA. In that particular day, I was to do the presentation to the presiding officers here in Parliament. I were to travel from Pretoria when my face was on the billboards that I am rogue. And I proceeded with my duty, but IPID was also sent that particular a clip to investigate. And subsequently, only last year, August, on the 8th of August, 2025, I received a call from IPID that I'm under investigation. And I think it was after a year that the matter was, or at least 8 months or 9 that the matter was on the social media space. So IPID officials came, we set up an appointment, they came to see me in my office, where they presented to me that they are investigating me for perjury. So it was a surprise that when it went out to social media, it was that I'm rogue. And here it's IPID sitting in front of me that they are investigating a case of perjury. And it made it jaw drop that a perjury, what could have happened, because I'm still waiting for my day in court. And the officials presented to me 3 statements without pointing out where these contradictions, where I could have perjured myself. And the indication when such was presented to me was that here are the statements that you have deposed in your docket. And I have never submitted 3 statements in my docket, but they presented 3 statements, which I confirmed that I have knowledge of the 3. 2 of the statements were indeed in the docket, and the 3rd statement was meant for the loss management control. It is the file statement that was supposed to be in the loss management of the South African Police Service. But just getting closer to what could have happened, the 2 statements, the 1 statement I would have deposed immediately after the incident, and as the investigation was continuing, like it happened now that I submitted the statement in November and now I have clarified certain issues, I had to clarify issues with the investigators, so they requested a statement. So both statements were filed in the docket, they were still in the docket. Me running around, going around the statement, trying to establish, because the officials never showed me that these are the areas of contradiction. I had to figure out myself, because they requested that I must go through them and submit the statement on the warning statement. So what I have picked up were issues that I've highlighted on the statement, and I'm reluctant to go blow by blow with them. They are before the members, they are in the statement. I still do not know what will be the end results of this matter, whether it's going to court or not, that I don't know. But I have pointed out the issues of discomfort on some of the issues that would have been affected on my deposed statement without me knowing. And the fact that the 3rd statement was a replica, word for word, of the 1st statement, only that the one it's typed and the other one it's a handwritten document. And the type 1, it's upon the request of the administrators of the loss management, that because of reproductions, when you submit from supply chain management to finance office to admin, the statement started to fade because it was handwritten. Even the writing of the then officer who took the statement was no longer eligible. So they requested my office that if that statement can be reduced in typing. So the statement was typed. So that is the difference, that one statement is handwritten, the other statement is typed, but the content are the same. And the first and the second statement, one is short and the second one was elaborative. And that is the account that I gave to my colleagues at IPID. Till to date, since they visited me and I submitted the statement, I do not know what is the status now.
But in short, could they identify from the content of the statements that they had in their possession, could they identify where you perjured yourself, where it was contradictory or incorrect, or where you lied?
I will not talk for them. That was never discussed with me. It was not pointed out with me. I think I even made the example with them that you cannot, with my policing experience, you can't come to me and say, you have killed a person. Where is the person? Who did I kill? You must point out where are these contradictions. So those contradictions were never explained to me. So till to date, I don't know where I would have contradicted or perjured myself. I don't know, because all statements were commissioned.
General, I think this is my last question. We have heard evidence from Lieutenant General Kumalo and Lieutenant General Mkonazi, and they have alleged that members of the PKTT were targeted by organizations such as IDEC and IPID. Do you think that this was that you were a target, or do you think the charges raised against you were well-founded?
I'm tempted to reserve my comment, but I will say I would not know. However, with the social media posts that I became aware of and that were sent to me directly by the social media activist, Ms. Mashale, the last post that he sent to me or that I came across, which will not be far from that insinuation that you are coming up with, is that I want you to quote it verbatim from the social media post that I think I do have copies somewhere. I will trace them now. That I was encouraged to go after Lieutenant General Musikili. Later on, I was requested to withdraw as if I am a child. So I'm just quoting what is there, but I think if I get hold of the article, I'll be able to articulate what was said in that article. Is what I can remember. And later on the same article, the reference is made that should I be taken to court, I will expose the general who encouraged me to do this. Hence, I'm saying what you are saying is not far from what is happening. However, I decided to deal with the matter on my own, not even thinking that it is correct, that it is a page from other quarters, because we know it happens. And the fact that after it was mentioned here and Ms. Mashale came, I listened to Ms. Mashale as far as I could with my schedule. When I get time, I will go back and check what was said. I didn't hear her mentioning, but it came at the commission that I was exonerated on the charges against me, and I'm treated with kids' stuff, which it's not what other colleagues are experiencing. So yes, I will say the mentioning and the persistent mentioning without facts, for me, it says, and I don't know if there is any a position that I should fight for, but yeah, that is how it came about, and it is what it is.
General, do you have any closing remarks? We've gone through your entire statement and your supplementary statement. Do you have any closing remarks that you wish to make?
No, I think I am covered with the questions. I've responded to the best of my ability as I have been requested to give account of what could help the committee in regard to addressing the issues, particularly the fact that I was the acting national commissioner at the time, and what other processes unfolded after that letter to date. I think I am sufficiently covered, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and clarify certain issues, and I hope they will be assisting going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Chair. That is the end from my side as well.
Thank you so much, General Tebello. Mosikili.
Thank you, Chair. You remind me of my father. Only him used to call me by that name. Others are English people. They either call me TC or Pinky. Thank
Yeah.
you, Chair.
Chief Whip is not Tebelo, it's Tebello. Yeah, Tebello. I know there are some people, when they say Mello, they say Melo. When they must say Tebello, they say Tebello. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Advocate Mkhwaizi. It's now 12:32. We must break at 1 o'clock. Can I check if there is any member who is ready to start engagements? Okay, let's do this. Let's take a 10 minutes break, and then we will come back and break at 12:15. 1:15. We take a 10 minutes break now, and then we will come back and run until 1:15. We will take a longer break, so that the speakers who are coming next can prepare themselves. Thank you so much. You are